And a good Wednesday, everybody. Welcome in Chase and Big Joe, 102.5 The Game. Big Joe out one more day. He'll return tomorrow when we're at the Omni. Nick Frazier in for him, Dr. Crane. And Brandon Bigsby, a.k.a. Brando, on the ones and twos behind the glass. Excited to have you here with us today. We got a lot to get into with the owners' meetings all wrapping up and all sorts of things. You got some World Cup things you got to get off your chest, which we're going to allow you to do here in a little bit.
Very frustrated.
I'm frustrated for you, and I'm sorry.
Something that I've never experienced my entire life and hopefully never have to ever again, but that's all I'm going to leave it at that for right now.
And baseball's going, but 12:30 we'll talk to Turron Davenport with the Titans and things going on down there in Arizona, and what to expect there. In 2:30, Max Hers out in L.A. as the Preds get ready for a 5-game West Coast road trip that is going to be huge, absolutely huge. But excited about all that and seeing what happens there. Looks like, according to Jeremy Fowler of ESPN, Hendon Hooker is signing with the Titans. So the former Vols quarterback now joins the artist formerly known as the Two-Tone Blue and will, I guess, be in the QB room. I don't know what that means exactly, but I think what it means is what we thought we knew, we definitely know now, and that is Will Levis, goodbye.
Hi, how you doing? Have a cup of coffee. We'll see you on the other side.
Because, I mean, you essentially now have 3 backups on your roster.
Yeah, it leads me to think, like, what is the plan for a guy like Hendon Hooker? Maybe he's just getting some extra tape out there for other teams. But, I mean, I say a pat on the back to the Tennessee Titans because they're both talking about Will Levis and Hendon Hooker. They're both from the same draft class, 2023.
Yep.
I mean, one was in the 3rd round, one was the 2nd round. But nonetheless, they both played at top-tier talent in the SEC. They both played each other on Halloween. So, I mean, these are 2 quality quarterbacks in their respective, rights. So,
yeah,
when it comes to Will Levis, and we talked to Tim Hasselbeck yesterday, said he looks good in the offseason. I mean, structurally, his body is always going to be defined and toned. But when it comes to throwing, I think that's what we see the difference between the 2.
So I find that to be interesting. I also find it interesting that reportedly Adam Schefter putting out there that the Titans are going to sign a former Commanders free agent wide receiver KJ Osborne to a 1-year deal. Osborne's been with a few different teams, probably had the most success with the Vikings. He's had a couple of 600-yard receiving seasons, but not really in the course of the last couple of years. So I'm curious of that move. It's a depth piece. Wouldn't expect too much out of it, but you got to have depth going into camp.
I think it also gives the signature to me that I don't think we're going to see Juwan Jennings in Titans blue at all.
I don't think. I'm kind of starting to think that as the longer he stays out there, the more likely it is he could go back to San Francisco
on a team-friendly deal.
Yeah, right. So like a 1-year prove-it type deal. So that could be interesting.
But KJ Osborne overall, though, as a wide receiver, does a pretty serviceable job for the most part. I mean, look, you're grabbing a guy just to fill out that wide receiver room. You're just trying to get some depth in there. But it makes you wonder about guys like Mason Kinsey and Xavier Restrepo. Are they going to stay on the practice squad and just be a bunch of, I guess, leeches in some aspects and just hold on for dear life with this wide receiver room? I don't know. Only time will tell.
Yeah. I mean, I'm curious of that as well. I mean, look, I'd like to see Restrepo get more of an opportunity to potentially, at least stick around on the practice squad. Mason Kinsey, I mean, just call New England and send him home to daddy for a 7th-round pick or something.
That'd be nice.
I like Mason Kinsey, but, I mean, when is he going to show up in November again?
I mean, he always does. Comes out of the bushes.
Yeah. It's like, oh, there he is. So, yeah, that's kind of where things sit right now with the Titans, but we'll talk to Turron more about that at the bottom of the hour. 615-737-1025 is our phone and text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Dr. Crane, what is our question of the day?
Well, Chase, I don't know if you've checked the calendar today, but today is April Fool's. It is April the 1st. There are a lot of people that have birthdays, a lot of people that have, fun things to do on April the 1st. I want to know to our audience, are you done with April Fool's? And if you're not, what is your best April Fool's joke?
Oh, that is a good one. 615-737-1025. And our question of the day is presented by Aries Tactical. Your safety, your skill, your Aries Tactical. First-time shooter, shoot for free. Just tell them that I, Chase McCabe, sent you, and check them out at ariestactical.com. I'm not a big April Fool's fan. I was, just kind of thinking about it. I like jokes. I like messing with people, but I think sometimes on April Fool's it can go a little too far. So you got to be careful of that. And, with what we do, I try and be very cognizant of that. So, I don't know. I don't know a good one that may have happened in the past.
I know when I was in grade school.
I know Willie has a good story of I think it was him and Darren, pulled one when George was on vacation. And they basically put out there he was taking a job with the Braves. So George started getting all these texts and calls from people saying, congratulations.
Now, hold on a second.
Yeah.
Why is my phone saying all this?
Yeah, so it was something like that. But yeah, I don't know. What about you?
When I was in grade school, I did some funny stuff with all my tests after I was done with them. Like, there were a few times, it was like grade school, 4th, 5th grade, whatever it was, and you get the A+, the B-, the C's, the D's, F's, if you ever got that. And there was one time I got an F for something. I think it was a project I didn't finish or whatever it was. So I ended up just putting a line right at the end of the F and then dragging that dash over and made it to A+. And I brought it home. And my mom was like, "Oh, my God, that's awesome." I was like, "Yeah, thanks, appreciate it. I did a really good job." And then they had these report cards. They had them like every quarter or whatever it was. And there was one class that I told Mom, I was like, "Yeah, I got all A's. Don't worry about it." There was one class I got like a C in, and she goes, "Why'd you get a C?" I was like, "I don't know. I got an A in that class. I mean, you saw the paper." So she ended up calling the teacher, and the teacher was like, "Yeah, no, he got an F on this project. He didn't finish it." And my mom found out, and I was like, "Sorry, I just didn't want to let you down." She goes, "Just do the project. Just finish it." I was like, "All right." So I did.
That was your April Fool's joke?
Yeah, to my mom. It was pretty crazy.
I bet that didn't go over very well.
It didn't, but it's all right. I'm all right with it. Okay. I've lived to tell the tale.
Yeah, you have. Never lie to mama.
No, not at all.
Can't be doing that. 615-737-1025. We'll get to these as the show goes along. But I want to start with Daniel Jeremiyah, the NFL Network, and now I guess ESPN, because I believe today is the day that they officially take over the NFL Network. He has his top 50 prospects. This is the 4th time he's done this ranking. And, of course, Fernando Mendoza is the number 1 prospect he has on his big board. But number 2 is running back Jeremiyah Love from Notre Dame. And so I bring that up. Then it's Sonny Styles, David Bailey, Arvell Reese. That's the top 5. Carnell Tate, Reuben Bain, Mansour Delaney, Caleb Downs, and Francis Maigoa. That's the top 10 that he has. Love has pretty much been consistently at number 2 for him. So I bring this up and I ask, is Jeremiyah Love the player now that if the Titans don't draft him, if they don't end up getting him, whether he goes to, at 2 or 3 before them or they pass on him, like, is this the heartbreaker? Like, is everybody now in love with Love and knowing that he's viewed as the second best prospect in this draft?
I'm going with no. I think there are, not saying better prospects out there in the draft pool, but I think you can pivot from a guy in Jeremiyah Love if he's not there for you at 4, if that's a Titans case. I think there are a lot of options where you can go at, say, Reuben Bain's there at 4. Stick with Reuben Bain. That's not a bad pick. I don't know why people are kind of, getting nervous about that. Again, I mentioned the other day on Monday that there's a lot of anxiousness and nervousness on the shoulders of Titans fans. But when you get to the draft and you make that selection, or the Titans make that selection, regardless of who it is, I think fans will be okay with it. But to your point, though, I'm still going to lean no.
I think it is. I think for a lot of Titans fans, they look at how gifted this kid is and how much he can help a team offensively, that I think so many Titans fans have fallen in love with him. And with Borgonzi saying the other day at the NFL meetings, like, we're going to take the best player available. If you believe every mock draft that's out there, he's going to be the best player available at number 4. And he's the second best prospect according to some people. So to me, it kind of adds up that I think if he's there, that's the pick based on what they've said. Now, I understand we're in lion season, but
right.
Lion, not lion, but I don't know. I just kind of feel like the stars are aligning.
I mean, we both have conversated about this multiple times throughout the week, and I've been on the camp of Jeremiyah Love for sure, but when it comes to other prospects in the NFL draft, I'm not saying there are other better prospects, but I'm just thinking if he's not there at 4, I think that's where the Titans may have to pivot. And even if there are trade options, because that was even mentioned in his, I think it was Jim White that posted on TennesseeTitans.com about quotes saying everything's on the table, like for Mike Borgonzi.
9877 on the text line says, we need a running back playmaker. Our offense has smelled the last few years. We need playmakers. And you're not wrong. So Jeremiyah Love could certainly be that. 615-737-1025. You can call or text if you want to weigh in on our question of the day. Rob has an April Fool's story. Rob, what you got?
Hey, guys. Thanks for putting me on. I grew up in suburban Detroit in a place called Grosse Pointe. My parents were both public school teachers. One day I go downstairs, and my little brother, little sister, my grandmother live with us. Mom and dad have giant picket signs, and it had been like the worst snowstorm in Detroit in like the past 25 years. And I say, what are you doing? And they're like, we're picketing your middle school, and when people come on in, they're going to see that this isn't okay because you guys shouldn't have school, and they didn't cancel school. And it's dangerous. And I'm like almost in tears. I'm like, there's no way I'm picketing. And my dad said something he never told me before. He looked at me and goes, I'm not asking you, I'm telling you. And I made these picket signs, like a giant billboards. My folks and family got me in this car, or actually big conversion van, to go down to my school. I'm just at my wit's end, and there's not a soul there. And my mom turns to me and goes, April Fools.
Oh, my word.
So what was your reaction?
I could not believe it. Literally the whole ordeal was like a 45-minute thing because we had draw these signs and hammer them until when you pick it and stuff. I mean, and here they are, teachers, and they're both public school teachers. My mom was East Detroit, my dad in Warren, and I'm buying every minute of it. At no point did I think this was April Fool's. And I walked and we got there, and there was just not a soul there, and it was incredible. It's the greatest April Fool's thing I've ever heard. And to this day, it's such a memorable moment and kind of a fun story to tell.
That's a good one. Thanks for sharing with us, Rob.
Thanks, guys. Peace.
Absolutely. We'll have more April Fool's stories. You can text those in, and also Jeremiyah Love. I mean, is that the pick for you that if the Titans don't end up with him, that's the heartbreaker? Or do you think there's enough talent around the 4th pick that you'd be okay either way? 615-737-1025 is Chasing Big Joe on a Wednesday, presented by the Omni Nashville Hotel, 102.5 The Game. Chasing Big Joe, 102.5 The Game here on this Wednesday. He's Nick Frazier. I'm Chase McCabe. Brandon Bigsby, a.k.a. Brando behind the glass. Merle and Mount Juliet. Why do people think Love is going to be available at 4? If he's the best player, then the Jets or Cardinals will take him or trade back. Titans will be lucky if he's still there. I think he goes to the Cardinals or they trade with someone. That's fair. I mean, look, that could definitely happen. But, you also have to look at team need too. I mean, what's the draft order? The Jets are 2?
It goes right? Vegas, Jets, Arizona, and then Tennessee.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, Lance Zierlein in his latest mock draft at NFL.com has the Jets going Arvell Reese, David Bailey to the Cardinals, and then Love to the Titans is how he has it. And Arizona is positioned to trade back or simply take best player available, which happens to be Bailey in this scenario. For the Jets, it says GM Darren Mogi has loads of draft capital and should be allowed the runway to build his squad. Reese is an unpolished diamond, but the Jets can take a swing on his upside with the number 2 overall pick, is what Zierlein says. But again, there's an opportunity for a team to trade into one of those spots if they like Love and take him ahead of the Titans. So it is a fair question to ask, do we think that he is really going to be there at 4?
Look, the texture makes a good point about Arizona because right now they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 running backs. I don't think they're going to have a running back by committee. Like, I understand James Conner had a lot of injuries in his past. I get all that. But then you go look at Tyler Algier, a running back they got out of Atlanta.
Yep.
That's a young gun that they probably are hoping for good years to come from him. But yet I don't know if he is that game-changing running back they need. And looking at Arizona,
they don't have that, in my opinion, on the roster right now. You know, they have Connor, as you mentioned, and then Algier.
Right.
I feel like there's another one, but
Trey Benson.
Yeah, Trey Benson.
Yeah. So I mean, it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility. I mean, they have Algier, Trey Benson, James Conner, Corey Kiner, and Bam Knight. Those are the Bam Knight. There's a name I hadn't heard in a while.
Yeah.
Those are the running backs on the roster right now.
Just hear me out with this idea I have. And this kind of stems back to the idea of the Titans looking at their future with Jeremiyah Smith next season, if that is the case, if they somehow get into that sweepstakes. But you look at Arizona and say they have the best opportunity to do something and turn their franchise around quicker rather than 3-4 years down the line. They could go sign Kirk Cousins to be their quarterback. You go and draft Jeremiyah Love if that's the case. You already have Marvin Harrison Jr. and you have Trey McBride. You have 4 pillars on your offense right there where you can change things around pretty quick. And you can go grab an edge rusher in the second round and make this thing, rather than it being a terrible season for them and tanking for next season, rather than they can turn around this season. So, I mean, there are ways to do this correctly if you're Arizona, but then that puts more pressure on the Titans.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. And then with the Jets, obviously they have Breece Hall, but really nothing else. I mean, Braylon Allen, Isaiah Davis, and Kene Nwagwu.
Yeah, thanks.
Those are besides Breece Hall, those are the running backs. So, I mean, again, I think it is a fair question, and that's why I ask it. Like, have some Titans fans gotten so hung up on getting Jeremiyah Love that if he ends up going to the Jets, Cardinals, or a team trades up to get him and he doesn't land with you, you know, is that heartbreak? Or if, you know, Reese or Bailey or Bain or, you know, whomever ends up being the pick, are you good with that, whatever, no matter what?
I think both ways I'm okay with whatever. Because looking at it from the defensive perspective, if you go grab a guy in Reuben Bain or Arvell Reese or whoever else is out there, Sonny Styles, whatever, you can go and rally around a guy like Robert Saleh because you know that he has a solid defense wherever he goes. But say the Titans do go draft Jeremiyah Love, that opens up the equation of having core pillar pieces for years to come. And that opens up the equation that I mentioned this past week and up to today about Jeremiyah Smith next year. Entering that sweepstakes immediately. Trade away some draft capital going forward. You have your core pillar pieces of Jeremiyah Love, Cam Ward, Gunnar Helmet tight end. Go grab a wide receiver in Jeremiyah Smith. Like, those are your 4 right there. You could easily go and grab an offensive lineman next season as well because you're going to obviously move off of Dan Moore Jr. So I'm excited when it comes to talking about offense like that. Very exciting. But yet, let's remember, defense wins championships.
They do. And a run game. So
it's true.
And look, I mean, we should say this, and I've tried to say this. Tony Pollard is not bad. I mean, he's been over 1,000 yards both years he's been with the Titans, and then either his last year or his last 2 years with the Cowboys. So, I mean, he is a consistent runner. And there's no reason why, even if you drafted Love, that you wouldn't want to keep him one more year. But I think if they truly look at Love as being a game-changing playmaker, Robert Saleh was talking about, I'm looking for game changers. If they look at him as that, then, yeah, I mean, to me, that's the best player available by that definition. And so now, you know, he also said edge rushers can be that too. So, you know, whether it's Bailey or Reese or Bain, you know, they might look at those guys as that. No, there are better players available, and we're going to take them.
My biggest worry is if the Titans do go and draft Reuben Bain, I pray and I just make sure and hope they do not move him inside because of the arms, if that is the case. Because if they go move him inside because of his arm length, then that goes to show you there's lack of depth there at that edge rushing position.
3457 says, trade Will and the number 4 pick, drop back and gain extra picks. I don't think Levis is really going to get you much in that scenario. He'd just be a throw-in essentially at that point, but okay, that's fair. Dustin in Hopkinsville, Pollard won't be here for a Super Bowl run. And before that says, if it isn't Love, it better be a trade back or the best damn receiver in the draft. I don't think the best receiver in the draft is worthy of the 4th pick. Tate's probably, consider the best receiver in the draft. I wouldn't spend the 4th pick on him.
No, if a guy's running, a 4.38 to a 4.4-ish, 4.5, I'm going to pass on that. That speed is just not there. You worry about that. Again, there's a difference between draft speed and football speed. And if he has better football speed, then that will pay off in the long run. But I just can't subscribe to that.
9355 says, Love ran behind what ESPN called a top 5 line last year. Can he perform at the same level with this offensive line? Again, a fair question. Who knows? And
it makes you wonder, too, say the Titans do this. They draft Jeremiyah Love at 4. What if they go grab Pat Coogan from Indiana? Because before he was at Indiana, guess where he was at? Notre Dame.
So,
Center.
Yeah. Interesting.
So maybe there's a little bit of overlap connection there with those two.
Well, we'll see because it's Indiana's Pro Day today. NFL Network's live at it. Of course, everybody's watching Mendoza, but there's a receiver, and I'm blanking on his name right now, but some mock drafts have the Titans taking him at 35.
Amari Cooper?
Yeah, Omar Cooper.
Cooper.
Yeah. So, that is something to consider as well. We'll talk to Turron Davenport from ESPN. We'll get his thoughts on this and much more. Coming up next, Chasing Big Joe, 102.5 The Game. Chasing Big Joe, 102.5 The Game on this Wednesday. Nick Frazier in for Big Joe. He'll be back tomorrow. And out in Arizona, where the NFL meetings have been going on, our man Turron Davenport joins us on the program. TD, what's up? How you doing?
Hey, what's going on? How are you guys?
We're fantastic. What's it been like out there in Arizona?
Well, I would say this. The weather has been beautiful. A lot of mixing around and talking to different folks, man. It's been great, man. I really enjoy opportunities to get away like this. And even got to go catch a baseball game last night.
Oh, nice. Very nice.
Yeah. Jake's Tigers, man. They gave up a five-run lead in the bottom of the 8th inning.
Oh,
ended up losing the game 5-0, and then they lost 7-4.
Well,
7-5, rather. Excuse me.
That's tough for Jake's Tigers for sure. But did you when Mike Borgonzi spoke, he made it very clear that this team is going to take the best player available. If in fact they stay at number 4, but whenever they make their pick, he said that phrase in some variant over and over again. So
yeah.
do you feel like that with a lot of mock drafts predicting Jeremiyah Love, that at 4, Jeremiyah Love truly would be the best player available?
I mean, it's very possible he could be the best player available. And, boards are all subjective, right? And David Bailey has gotten top pass rush selections as far as ranking is concerned, and you've seen Ruben Bain get, this best overall player. So it could be a variety of guys. I thought it was interesting. Like, I came away from the Borgonzi presser like, you know what? I think they very well may draft Jeremiyah Love. But then after talking to Salah, it's like, he says that playmakers could be edge makers, edge rushers too. And it's just like, all right, well, or as he termed it, game changers. That's how he termed it. But, yeah, it's really interesting, man. There's a lot of back and forth. It's really hard to tell for sure.
Well, do you take that as the GM's thinking one way, the coach's thinking the other, or knowing that this time of year is a little bit of line season that they don't want to show their hand, and so one guy's going to say one thing and another guy's going to say another?
Yeah, I mean, there is some of that, to try to drum up interest, because here's another thing that no one really pointed out. Borgonzi said the phones are open.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So he did make it known that, they will be willing to make a deal, obviously, if one came across. But I think it's a mixture of the two. But, I mean, I don't believe totally in the whole smokescreen thing. I think to an extent, yes, but not the effort that people seem to think it is.
Turron Davenport's online with us here on the Chase and McJoe Show. Turron, when it comes to wide receiver KJ Osborne, what does he bring to the table for the Titans? And also, does that kind of look at the trajectory of where the Titans are going to look at for the draft instead of maybe taking a flyer on a fourth-round pick for a wide receiver?
I don't know that it's necessarily replacing the flyer fourth-round pick receiver. I think it's a back-of-the-rotation type of move to give him a guy that could come in and compete, and he has some return skills too. He could give you some slots. So I think, there's a mixture of it with him, and it's a move that's obviously not overly significant, but it could end up being a nice. I would compare this to the James Prochet signing last year. It's the same type of move.
Well, and I kind of get the sense, TD, that they're content going into camp with anywhere from 10 to 12 viable receivers that they have to choose from to make it a tough decision to improve that room.
Yeah, and I mean, you want competition at every position, and it for the most part, it breeds success. So I can't knock them for what they're doing, and it's not a high-profile move. It's not an expensive one. They're just bringing in a veteran receiver, and hey, see what happens.
TD, we were talking to Tim Hasselbeck yesterday, and I asked him about Peter Skoronski and the Titans, having roughly $63 to $64 million in cap space. Do you see a deal being done before the season with Peter Skoronski?
I don't know that a deal gets done. I'm not sure about that. It doesn't seem like it's pointing that direction. I'll say that, but you know how things could change in a hurry. So you never know, but I don't think so.
Do you think that's a potential concern going forward with this team because it needs to be built from the inside out?
No, I don't think it's a concern. I don't think Skoronski is going anywhere. I just don't think that. I'm not going to say I don't think. I don't know that a deal is going to get done before the season.
I got you. And then adding on to that as well, when it comes to another free agent guy today, Hendon Hooker, out of the same draft class as Will Levis. What do you make of the quarterback being brought in back home to Tennessee?
Yeah, how about that, right? Maybe 3 years ago, if I would have said to you, hey, man, Will Levis and Hendon Hooker, they're going to be on the Titans, and Cam Ward's going to be the starter, you'd be like, what? So it's come full circle, and it's just one of those things where it shows you the projection, like how much of a projection and crapshoot this is, right? Because Hendon Hooker was a guy that people felt was a Heisman candidate, one of the best college football players, and now look at him, he's struggling to make a roster.
Yeah, and whatever it may be for Hendon Hooker being with the Titans going into training camp and so forth, I look at this as a solid opportunity for Will Levis to kind of prove himself. And also it's a twofold thing because then it allows the Titans front office to shop him around and say, he's looked really good in all of our practices.
Yeah, how about that, right? And, of course, Robert Saleh, he said he wants 3 joint practices, so a little more advertising.
Well, and what I'm curious about, TD, is – we believe Mitchell Trubisky is going to be the backup, right? I don't think you sign him to have a competition. So, to me, I look at it as right now, especially with Cam Ward coming off an injury, you want to have, 3 guys at least healthy going into training camp knowing that it may take him a little while and you want to protect him.
Right. Yeah, you want to make sure that you have enough in there to where neither of the quarterbacks, their arms are getting stressed from having to throw too much. That's typically why you have 3 quarterbacks in a situation where there's not a true competition for the backup type of situation. You know what I mean? Kind of like last year. I think that's more or less how the setup is in that case. But I think in this case, they want to showcase Levis if they don't deal him before the draft.
Going to be interesting for sure with that when it comes to the quarterbacks. Borgonzi talked about interior offensive line. Do you kind of feel the same way I do, that the draft is a really good place to find that in just about any round that Tim Hasselbeck brought up it has interior offensive lineman has a pretty low bust rate in the first round. So do you feel like this draft in particular could be where they could fix a lot of those issues? I think we lost TD. We'll get him back.
That Arizona weather, it can drop a call just like that. It's hot out there, by the way. It's like 100 degrees. There we go.
We lost you there for a second, TD.
Yeah, had a drop call there. My bad. I do feel like the offensive line, especially the interior part, you could get some good players. I mean, look at the guy who's competing for one of those jobs right now, Jackson Slater.
Yeah.
We're talking about a day 3 pick, right? And Mike Bergonzi, we talked to him on Monday, and he did say, hey, listen, on day 2, day 3, you could get guys, who could start. So they believe that too. And it's interesting because you kind of got mixed signals coming out, because I know at the Combine, the conversation that I had a lot was about making sure that things were easier for Cam and having a veteran center. And obviously Austin Slopeman is a guy they signed, but there wasn't really a conversation about youth and this year's draft being an area that they're going to tap in order to improve the interior offensive line, but it looks that way now.
TD, if it does come to the draft and the Titans are kind of getting married with the idea of Jeremiyah Love at 4, should they be worried about somebody trading up in front of them to get Jeremiyah Love?
I don't know about worried about it. It's one of the things, if it happens, then it's kind of like natural selection. You know what I mean? Where
right.
Their pick was kind of jaded into where it went because a guy that's clearly, among their top ones is gone. I think that's kind of how that works. I don't think it's anything to be concerned about a team straightened up, because I feel like they have a cluster of guys, 4 guys right there that hey, if any of those guys are there, I think they'll be happy.
Yeah, just looking at some, the fantasy drafts and so forth, that a lot of projections and mocks have Washington in some aspects a few weeks back going for a guy in Jeremiyah Love. And Chase and I were just discussing about Arizona. Arizona just seems to have a running back by committee. Obviously, they signed Tyler Algier this past offseason. But again, there's no really definitive core piece there. And I think if Arizona were to get a guy like Kirk Cousins at quarterback, you have Marvin Harrison Jr. at wide receiver, Trey McBride at tight end, their missing piece at running back seems to be a guy in Jeremiyah Love. So that's what I'm just curious about. But again, a few drafts ago, they go draft Isaiah Simmons at defensive end. That just makes you wonder, what would Arizona do to kind of mess up this feng shui?
Yeah, it could definitely. There are so many ways that it could go. And what else? Monty Ossenfort obviously is a guy who has history with the Titans. So, yeah, and there's no direction. Now, obviously, he wasn't the guy that did all that back then, but, he's in place now. And I'm not going to say that the clock is ticking on him, but he does have to get things turned around before it's too late.
Turron Davenport is with us. One more. Indiana's Pro Day is going on right now. Fernando Mendoza is on the field and throwing. All 32 NFL franchises are there to watch the Pro Day. But from the Titans' perspective, I mean, we know Mendoza's not on their radar, but could somebody like Omar Cooper Jr., Pat Cogan, I mean, do you think they're looking at some of those guys as potential players?
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned Pat Cogan, because nobody is talking about him, but he's someone, on day 3 that could come in and help them out. And Omar Cooper, without a doubt, I really like his ability. And it's funny, I remember this year just watching Indiana and then going into the locker room, in the media room, talking with the other media folks. I'm like, man, that dog number 3 is nice, and here it is. He's a guy that may end up being the first receiver drafted, very likely. Obviously, Surratt is on that team as well.
TD, appreciate the time as always. Safe travels back to Nashville, and we'll talk soon.
All right, appreciate you guys. Take it easy.
Absolutely.
Let's go Mets.
Go Cards. Hey,
go Braves.
for the series today.
Hey, chill out, Nick.
We'll see you, TD.
All right.
Turron Davenport, you can see his work on ESPN and ESPN.com joining us, and always appreciate that. Some good stuff we'll react to, and again, we're watching Fernando Mendoza throw right now on his Pro Day. We'll talk more about that and much more. Coming up next, Chase and Big Joe. Nick in for Joe today, 102.5 The Game. Jason Big Joe, 102.5 The Game. He is Dr. Crane Nick Frazier in for Big Joe today. And Brando behind the glass. Kenny the Mailman wants to give a April Fool's story in honor of our question of the day. Kenny, what's up?
Chase, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing fantastic. And yourself?
Excellent. Are you old enough to remember the Nashville Banner newspaper?
Yes, I am.
A lot of people here in town don't remember. We used to have two papers, but the Banner would come out in the afternoon about 2 o'clock, which made it unique. Well, this is many, many years ago. It's at the start, really, of sports talk radio in Nashville. And the front of the banner said, "The University of Tennessee sells nickname Big Orange to Florida." Do you remember that?
I don't remember it, but I think I've heard about that.
It was a tremendous article. They was going to receive $8 million for the athletic department. They had quotes from each coach. Some of them said they were happy about it. Some of them said they had to rethink their position with the university. It would just went on and on and on. And then it said, turn to page 13. And about the size of a postage stamp, it said April Fools. But Bob Bell hosted a sports show in Nashville, and he was a huge UT guy, former sportscaster at Channel 2 for a lot of y'all new people. And he got call after call after call. People said, I'm tearing my season tickets up as I speak. I'll never step in that stadium again. My grandparents was there when they were Big Orange, and they're not going to sell my grandparents' legacy. And he would just, all he said was, he didn't blow it. He just said, read every bit of the article. Read every bit of the article. But still to this day, that was one of the best pranks I've ever heard. And sadly enough, hardly anybody's left anymore that remembers it.
Yeah.
Listen, y'all have a great day.
Thank you, Kenny. Appreciate it. That is a good one. I do remember Hope Hines and Channel 5 did one where they're talking to I think it was Fisher and maybe Floyd too, but saying that the Titans had traded McNair and Eddie George to the Cowboys, and then like at the end it cuts to Steve and Eddie going April Fools.
Oh man, what TV news used to be kind of like that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean you could get away with it a little bit more without the internet and stuff like that. So I've decided to jump into a draft simulator. I go Love at 4. Caleb Downs falls into the second round. So I take him at 35. Let me tell you, there is no chance in hell that happens. Sonny Styles has also fallen. I'm at pick 73. He hadn't been taken.
Take him.
So that's what we're going to do. So 2 Ohio State guys. I also made a trade and got some extra picks. Now at pick 101, we've got a lot of talent. Eli Stowers is on the board.
Don't mind if I do.
I know, right? Jacob Rodriguez from Texas Tech is still on the board.
You know, that's an interesting player coming into the draft because, you know, he had 100-plus tackles total at Texas Tech. I'm just not high on a lot of those Big 12 players from Texas Tech because of the, you know, quality of play in that conference. Because it's almost like stat padding in a roundabout way. Now, don't get me wrong. Good players. They're great players. It's just that I don't know if the stats really tell how true it is to their play.
I am trading with Indy back to 113 and also getting pick 156 out of it.
Ooh. So
I am trading back. And unfortunately, Eli's gone. But I feel good about getting more picks. Eli Stowers goes to the Giants.
That'd be a good little
on this mock draft.
Imagine Isaiah Likely and Eli Stowers with Jackson Dart and Cam Scattaboo. There we go.
I think I like where this has ended up. At 78 or at pick 113, I'm going to take Kalen Rutledge, the guard out of Georgia Tech. So we're going to get some interior offensive line help there at 113, which I think is a good value. We also have 132, and we're going to go there's some centers here. We're going to go Trey Zune III from Texas A&M.
Okay.
So we have now accomplished getting 2 interior offensive linemen there. Now we're on the board. We have picks 142 and 144 based on some trades that we have made. Got a lot of tight ends available. So we're going to go. I mean, we could take a tight end.
More the merrier.
Yeah.
What was that, 4th round right there?
Yeah, roughly.
I don't know. No thanks.
No?
I'd say take a flyer on a tight end in like the 6th round.
Yeah.
Because right now you have Daniel Bellinger, for the Titans' sake, Daniel Bellinger and
Yeah.
Gunnar Helm.
I think we're good on tight end, to be honest with you. This is tough. How you doing?
When you get into the meat of a draft, you're just thinking, this would be great.
How about Deontay Lawson from Alabama, inside linebacker? Give Cedric Gray a little help.
Wouldn't be opposed of it. He brings a little size into the box. So, yeah, I think that's a good little pickup.
All right, we're going to do that. And now we're back on it at 144.
Oh, man.
We might reach on something here. We got a lot of linebacker. There's Eric Rivers, who's a wide receiver from Georgia Tech.
Mm-hmm. So right now on your board that you have checked off, it is safety, edge rusher, running back, interior line, and that's center and guard.
Yep.
So you have 5 total picks right now.
And inside linebacker.
And inside linebacker, so that's 6. I mean, you're really checking off a lot of the open boxes right now.
Yeah, I haven't found an edge rusher.
Okay.
I mean, got an outside linebacker, but I haven't found an edge rusher. So I don't know. Just kind of a fun little.
Yeah, an edge rusher, especially in this draft, like I feel like the first 2 rounds are great. That's when you really got to do your research in the 4th, 5th rounds. You're thinking, can you take a flyer on this guy? Can he develop under a Robert Saleh defense? Because to me, if you grab a edge rusher in like the 4th or 5th round in this draft, I think they'll be serviceable. I really do. A rotational edge rusher will be hugely serviceable for Robert Saleh.
615-737-1025. We will have more coming in hour number 2, Chasing Big Joe on a Wednesday. 1025 The Game.